I don't approach a young band any differently. I approach a young band by saying, look at the highest standard they are competing with. Not, oh, they're doing really good because they're young. They are doing really good because they're young, but they have to keep aspiring to get better and better and better. And I thought they played very well. I thought they presented their program very well. And I thought the soloists played extremely well. The trombone player played well. There are things, all of them can improve, and they will. But what I thought about it was that the planning of the program, which presumably is not theirs, it's the conductor's job to plan the program, was absolutely brilliant. It showed them off perfectly. It showed them what they could do without trying to make them do things that they had no hope of doing. And that was one of the thrills about it. There were lots of things, particularly in All Night Long, where there were sort of phrases in that they could have approached differently, but on the whole, I thought they did a fantastic job, and they obviously enjoyed every minute of it, which came across, and that's important too, the enjoyment of it. Yeah, I was thrilled with them, but when you compare them with what the top bands are doing, of course, we're talking a different ball game then. What I liked about their program was that they had obviously been well schooled in their dynamics, so they knew when they were going to play quietly and they knew when they were going to play loud. And I thought the other thing was that, generally speaking, they were well on top of the rhythmic phrases, so they knew how the phrases went. There were subtleties. They would sometimes break up a phrase they would rather run a phrase into another phrase where it should really be broken into two phrases. They would also sometimes not run into the first beat from a phrase. If the score was on the screen, I could show you where, but obviously we can't do that. But that was one thing. What I liked about it was that when they came to play the ballad and the trombone solo, which was beautifully played, when you play a trombone solo, you have to, one of the things that he will learn as he gets older is that you have to not necessarily follow what the page is telling you, because the page will tell you where the notes are going and they will tell you the phrasing of the notes. But what you can do when you're the soloist is you can move those around. And when you move them around, you take the audience by surprise. Because if you keep playing them the same, each phrase the same, it's quite human nature that you see that phrase coming. You say, oh, here it comes again. He's playing that again. Whereas if you move the phrase lighter, a little bit heavier, play a note a little bit later, play a note a little bit earlier, pull into a note. On the trombone, you can do that. Tongue a note rather than slur into it. That engages the audience. And the other thing, the important thing with playing trombone is when you're playing in that style, you use the lip vibrato. And when you use the lip vibrato, that's fine down the bottom of the instrument. You're not moving the slide. It's all being done with the lips. That's fine. But when you get up into the higher register of the trombone, it sounds really nice if you can perfect it, that you go into a note and you play it straight with no vibrato, and then at the end of the note, you just put a slide vibrato on to warm the note up. And the way you go from this note to that note, and then the vibrato comes on with the slide. And some players do that using a lip and a slide vibrato together. And that makes the trombone sound different. And it makes it communicate something to you that a sort of straight ahead lip vibrato, whenever you're going to use it, I don't think does. I mean, a lot of the older players use a lot of lip vibrato, but more modern players are using more and more slide vibrato. And I'm sure that he'll be able to master that. He's a good player. He played well. Now, All Night Long. Now, that was far more demanding. The thing about All Night Long was that, again, you had these rhythmic phrases. And the thing about rhythmic phrases where you're in semiquavers and things is you mustn't race. You've really not got to race. You've not got to panic when you see them. You've got to actually know that this phrase is coming up and make sure that you're ready for it without suddenly thinking, oh, here I am, and oh, what am I going to do? Even however often you play a piece, you've still got to be aware of the roadmap, where the difficult bits are coming up, and whether you're ready to play them, and whether, if you're with someone else, you're going to play them exactly the same. That's really important when you do that. Then there are little things like in the middle of that there's what's called a fall. Now a fall, which in jazz and rock music means that you hit the note and you actually fall off it. So you go bow. And it's just a subtle thing. But the length of a fall, if a whole band's playing it, the length of the fall is really important. And you have to define it so that you say, okay, I'll give you an example. You're going 1, 2, 3, bow. Where is that going to end? If you go 1, 2, 3, bow, it doesn't mean very much. And particularly if some of the band are going bow and some of them are going bow, you know, so you know where the fall is going to end. And that little subtleties like that. So you go 1, 2, 3, bow, and the fall ends on 1 of the next bar. These little pull-ins and these little falls and these little semiquaver phrases all are they're the essence of the music, and they're very important. And of course, when you're that age, these are things that you will learn, and they will learn them. One of the problems when you're a teacher and you're teaching young children, and they get better and they get better, and then they leave the school. And so you have the next crop coming up, and you're basically going back to square one. It's like playing snakes and ladders. You get to 98 and you hit the snake, and you come all the way down and, whoa, got to start again. And he obviously knows how to do this, because when you start again, you have to go right back to the basics and teach the new lot how to do it. One of the ways, and I did this with the BBC band, one of the ways that you can teach children is they have fantastic memories. They're great at imitation, is to actually let them hear the style of the music they're going to play. So if they're going to play a rock-based, find some rock-based music which uses brass and saxophones and play it to them. Say, listen to this. This is how the best players in the world play it. And I did it with the BBC band in as much as we had to reproduce Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Stan Kenton. And I bring something in and said, there's the Kenton band playing it. That's where we start. And that's what, I don't know whether he does it, he probably does, but that's where you can do it. You can actually say, here's the best of its kind. This is what we're aiming at. Listen how they do this. Listen how they do that. We're going to imitate that. We're going to get into this style. We're going to get into it so that we don't even think about it. It's natural to us. And that's one way of doing it. And the other is simply hard work, simply putting in the hours and getting the children to work together. And the most important thing, which he's obviously achieved, is to keep the enthusiasm. You keep the enthusiasm. They had fantastic enthusiasm. And that shouldn't just be the province of the young to have enthusiasm. So the teacher may be 30 years older, but he's got the enthusiasm, and the important thing is to transmit it to the children, and then they'll do it for you.